You used to go back and forth with yourself. Not out loud, not in a dramatic way. Just a quiet kind of thinking before you reached for anything. You'd be in the middle of a decision, and instead of immediately looking for an answer, you'd sit there for a second. Not stuck, just thinking. You'd push back on your own ideas, change your mind twice before landing somewhere. It was messy, slow, occasionally circular, but it was yours. It's still there, but something about it is different now. It used to start automatically, the moment there was something to figure out. Now it starts later, after you've already checked, after something has already answered. And by the time your own voice gets to the question, the space for it is already filled.
Here's what's easy to miss about this. It didn't stop because something went wrong. It stopped because something went right. The answers came faster. The process got cleaner. The friction, the part where you used to sit and not know yet, that part started feeling unnecessary. So you skipped it. Without noticing you did. It just didn't feel necessary anymore. And the conversation got shorter, then shorter again, then mostly quiet. Not because you stopped caring, because the space between the question and the answer got too small for it to fit. That's the part most people don't catch. It's not that the inner voice disappeared. It's that the conditions for it slowly stopped existing. And because everything still worked, because the answers were good, the decisions got made, the work got done, there was no signal. Nothing broke. Nothing felt missing. Just a quiet that settled in, without announcing itself. And most of us didn't notice it had arrived.
Before we begin, if you value quiet, thoughtful content like this, subscribing helps this channel grow and makes it possible to keep creating videos without noise or hype. Thank you for being here. Now, let's begin.
But here's what almost no one says about this. That conversation didn't go anywhere. It's not something you lost. It's not something you need to rebuild. It's something you can still notice, in the same places it always started. The people who kept finding their way back to it didn't do anything unusual. They didn't fight the speed. They didn't refuse the tools. They didn't romanticize the slow way. They just kept a small part of the process that most people quietly handed over. Not a technique, not a habit, a moment. Before anything opens, before anything answers. A few seconds where they still had to come up with something themselves. And in that moment, the conversation was still happening. It never left. It just stopped having space.
Think about the last time you worked through something difficult on your own. Not because there was no other option, because you stayed with it long enough to find something. Maybe it was a decision you kept turning over. Maybe it was a problem that didn't have an obvious shape yet. You didn't reach for anything. You just sat with it. And at some point, not dramatically, not suddenly, something came together. Not because you found the answer, because you stayed inside the question long enough for your own thinking to catch up. That process still works. It doesn't feel slower when you're inside it. It just unfolds differently. It produces something the other way can't. Not a better answer, necessarily, but an answer that went through you. One that carries a little of how you actually think, how you actually see things. Here's where it gets more specific. There's a kind of thinking that only happens in conversation with yourself. Not when you're trying to figure it out. More like when you're halfway through a thought and something shifts before you even know why. The kind where you're not trying to get anywhere. You're just following a thread, seeing where it leads. And sometimes
it leads nowhere. Sometimes it circles back. But occasionally, it reaches something you wouldn't have reached any other way. An angle you wouldn't have thought to ask for. A connection that only makes sense because of something you've lived through. That kind of thinking doesn't show up when something is already there, waiting to replace it. It needs the open space, the not knowing yet. And that space has gotten smaller. Not because you chose to shrink it, because there's always something ready to fill it before it has a chance to open. And what you lose, slowly, quietly, without noticing, isn't a skill. It's a way of arriving at things that could only have come from you. Not what you know, how you find things. And that part, that's still there, waiting for the space.
If this feels familiar so far, not as information, but as something you've been dealing with, we keep a growing collection of prompts, tools, and simple frameworks designed to help you think more clearly, start more easily, and work better in this environment. We add to it over time. Nothing overwhelming, just practical resources you can return to when you need them. If you want access, you'll find it in the description. Now, let's continue.
Here's what's worth holding on to. You already know where that conversation lives. Not in theory, in practice. There are moments, specific ones, where you still go back and forth with yourself before anything else enters. Maybe it's early in the morning, before the day starts pulling. Maybe it's in the middle of something, when you're not quite ready to look for the answer yet. Maybe it's in the shower, or on a walk, or in that strange half-aware space, just before sleep. You already know those moments. You haven't lost the conversation. You've just been moving past it, before it has a chance to start. Not intentionally. Just other things moved in. Faster things. More immediately useful things. But the conversation is still yours. And the people who keep it alive aren't doing something remarkable. They're just treating those moments as if they matter. Not scheduling them, not disciplining themselves into them. Just not moving past them before they've had a chance to happen. That's still available to you. It always was. When was the last time you let a thought finish before you went looking for the answer? That conversation was never a luxury. It was the part of thinking that couldn't be handed off. Not because it was sacred, because it was the only part that produced something specifically yours. And it's still there, not waiting to be reclaimed, not waiting to be protected. Just waiting for a moment where nothing rushes in first. That moment already happens. Most of the time, you just move past it. And when you don't, it keeps going. And there's something underneath this worth going further into. Because it's not just about what happens when you think alone. It's about what happens when you stop trusting that you can. That's where this goes next.
If you made it this far, it means this topic matters to you. In the next video, we continue building on this with clearer understanding, practical perspective, and ideas you can actually use. Following the channel really helps us keep developing content like this and adding more resources over time. The next video continues from here. You can watch it now.